Welcome back to Teaching with Google Classroom. This video is going to focus on the grading portion that's included with Google Classroom. You'll notice at the top, one of your main tabs is Grades. On the Grades tab, as you create assignments, you'll see that each assignment is in a separate column. The student names are in rows, and as you begin grading your assignments, the grades will appear here in your gradebook, as well as show a class average so that you can make decisions on modifying instruction for moving to the next stage if most seem to be grasping the concept, or providing remediation as needed. While we're here in the Grades tab, I'm going to take us to the same gear that we've been to for Settings. At the bottom of the Class Settings tab, you'll see a grading section. This is all about using the gradebook within Google Classroom to kind of mirror what you're already doing in your face-to-face instruction. So you'll note that you have the ability to decide if you would like to have an overall grade calculation. You can do also total points if you would like to use a total point system, or weighted by category. Again, this depends on how you are already grading things in your classroom and what your students are familiar with. You also have the ability to show overall grade to students or not. I would like to address this for a moment, because if you are putting all of your classwork into Google Classroom, then showing an overall grade makes sense. Again, this is just something you need to consider. If it's going to confuse the student that they're making an A in their Google Classroom, but they're making a C overall, that might be a bit confusing. If you want more information about how to choose the grade system that works for you, you can click on the Learn More link here, and it will talk to you about what are total points and what are weights by category. And there's an example so that you can see in this example, essays were 50%, tests are 50%, so they are a fairly equal portions. But you may have some where it counts, essays are 30% of your grade and tests are 40% of your grade, and then you have another 30% on in-class assignments. So basically, your job is to make this Google Classroom grading system reflect what you already do in the classroom. If you would like to add grade categories, you can choose Add Grade Category and then give it the number of points. Okay, so I've gone in and made some grade categories, and you can see I have these 4 grade categories, and right now I have it set to no overall grade, but I want to show you that's because total points is the default method. So this says how many points, so this equals 100. So in my scoring system I use 100 points, and each of these is that certain number of points. But if you use weighted by category, you have to go in and do percentages. So if you do that as you're doing grades, this is helping calculate it for you in your grade book. You don't have to go in and make grade categories at all. This is just available to you if you would want. So basically, when you come to your settings, you're going to go through grades. You're going to decide if you're going to use total points or weighted by category, or if you're not going to do any overall grade, whether or not you're going to show the overall grade to students, and then set up any grade categories. I'm going to go ahead and leave mine set in weighted by category so that we can kind of see how this works as we go along, and I'm going to go ahead and click Save. So once you've done that, and so here's back in my gradebook, I'm going to go to the Classwork tab for a minute and open up one of my assignments. And let's say this was an essay. So I'm going to go back into edit so you can see it in the edit mode. So now that I've gone in and created categories, when I create assignments or other types of things, I have to then say which one of these it's going to be. Well, this is an essay assignment, so I'm going to put essay, and I'm going to click Save. So that is telling my gradebook that this is an essay assignment. So that means this is going to be 50% of the overall grading of that assignment. So every time you put in a question or an assignment, you're going to need to choose a category so that it knows how to properly calculate it. So I'm going to say this was a homework assignment. And so as I begin grading these things, it's going to calculate that. So bottom line, first thing you're going to want to do is set up any categories and tell your gradebook what method you're using, if you're using points or if you're using weighted categories. So now that we've gone through and we've set up our preferences, now it's time to think about grading. Now before we went into the Chapter 1 reflection, we looked at how to click on a student's work and open it up into the grading panel for Google Classroom. Now I want to show you how easy this is to navigate, because this is one of my favorite parts of Google Classroom actually, because if you're utilizing the power of Google products and you're assigning those products and they're turning them in, this grading portal is really cool and easy to use. First of all, you'll notice a drop-down tool on the left-hand side where you can sort your students by first or last name or by status. Have they turned it in or not? This is a way that you can quickly get to one student's assignment, and I'll notice that this person hasn't submitted theirs. It's still assigned, but it would let me navigate to it. So you can choose a particular person. You can also just click at the top to move to your next student. So no more taking home giant crates of paper. You're able to just click through here and grade the work. The other thing that you'll notice is that when you open a student's document, it puts it in suggestion mode. If you've never used suggestion mode, that means if you make any edits to the document, I'll just use this piece up here in the directions. Maybe instead of please answer, I want to say please respond to. So if I make any changes, I want you to see what happens. It says Ms. Garvey is suggesting that you replace answer with respond to. So if the student comes back in and they like that, they can just click on the accept suggestion. But I'm going to just imagine, instead of using that, I want to use the power of commenting, because I enjoy the comments feature in Google Docs better than the suggestion feature. I like using suggestions when I'm on a collaborative document or a plan and I want to make suggestions, but when I'm grading students' work, I like to highlight and use comments. So we're going to imagine that this is not a complete sentence, and I would like to remind them that they should they should write in complete sentences. So when I highlight something, you'll notice this little tool here, which is add comment. And so I can say this should be a complete sentence. And then I can click comment. Now when I return this to the student, they'll be able to click through these comments and it will take them straight to the area in the document that I'm referring to. And if they've changed it, they actually can click resolve and I'll be notified that they fixed it. So that's something that I like to do, is use the comment feature. The other thing that I would like to show you is the comment bank. So I'm going to click over here to the right on the comment bank, and this is such a powerful feature for teachers. You have things that you say all the time. Check your spelling, great job, use capital letters at the beginning of a sentence, those kinds of things. So if you have comments that you type all the time and you don't want to have to type it out each time, you can actually click add to bank, type in that comment you use all the time, and then what happens is, as you're using it, for example, this does not have a capital at the beginning of the sentence, I can click on this, click my comment, and I can say copy to clipboard, come here and paste it. And then comment. The other thing I can do is, instead of even having the bank open, I know this one says use capitals at the beginning of sentences, so I'll show you what happens. When I start typing that, it will actually start populating those items that are in my comment bank, and I can just click on it and click comment. So that, whoopsie, I put two, so now I've got this bank of comments that I can just pull from to quickly help me grade. So as you're going through, you're writing comments, you're adding things to the comment bank, when you're ready to put an actual grade on an assignment, you can type it in here. So let's say this grade was an 80. I want you to notice that as I type in 80, it did say it was saving, but now it says not returned and it's in red. All this has done for me is saved the grade for me, but I have not yet released that grade to the student. Now I could go at the top and click return, but I want to return all my student assignments at the same time, so I'm going to hold off on that. Also, besides the comments I put in the document, I can also add a private comment to this document. So I'm going to go ahead and use the toggle because I know this is being saved, and I'm going to go to the next assignment. Now, in this particular instance, Sally hasn't actually done anything, but I'm going to imagine that she has, and I'm going to go ahead and grade Sally on her paper. She did a good job. It's saving, but again, I haven't returned. So I'm going to close this for a moment, and I'm going to go back here to our Chapter 1 reflection, and I want you to notice that it saved the grades that I put in the boxes that I typed in on the grading panel. So when I am ready to return these, I can put a check in the check boxes and I can click return. This is what you would normally see. Do you want to return the work to the students? Now, if I add a private comment here, this private comment is going to go to both of these students. So I'm not going to add a private comment here because those would probably be different comments, and then I can click return. Once I've done that, they receive an email that I've graded their paper. They receive any private comments that I've put in, and they'll receive that in their email as well as be able to see it in Classroom. So to show you from the student's perspective, when I go on the Classwork tab and I go to that Chapter 1 reflection that we just graded as a teacher, now the status says graded. It doesn't just say that it has been submitted or completed. So when I go into View, I can see that this assignment received an 80 out of 100, and then I can ask questions. If the teacher said unsubmit and resubmit it, I could do that as well. I could click on it, it's been returned to me, and then I could resubmit it if I had changes that I wanted to make. So this is how you see your grade here. Also, if you are using grading categories, you will notice that now with your assignments, you're going to have the grading category showing up in those assignments. So as you start layering grading on with this, that helps as well. So I'm going to minimize that student view and go back to the teacher view. Also, you can open one document first and then toggle through, but when you are looking at it in this mode, it's just sort of a snapshot. So I'm going to go back to the class, and we looked at grading sort of an essay, but I want to go back to the Classwork tab, go to one of our other assignments that were questions. So when I click on View Question, I can see the students' comments here, and all I have to do as I'm reading each student is type their grade in. I can give them a private comment, and then I can close this little panel when I'm ready to click on Sally's response. Now, she hasn't responded yet, but once she does, I can give her her grade. This is also helpful if you need to make modifications for some students, like maybe this student didn't type hers in because she was unable to type it, but she recorded her voice. She might not actually have a submission, but I could still come in here and give her her grade, and it would still save it. Same thing as when you enter their grades in, it's only going to save the grade in your grade book. You're always going to have to remember to return it if your students need to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and return this, and I want to show you what our grade book is starting to look like now. So when I go back to my gradebook tab, now what you start seeing is your class averages building, and you start seeing your grades populating. Now, this is a really cool feature because now I've got sort of this grade book of all the things in my class that I want to be able to transfer into PowerSchool so that I can put those grades or transfer somewhere else. But this is how I'm going to keep track of my grades. So now that we're talking about grades, it seems like we've graded almost everything. I'm going to imagine that this is also something else you can do. If you've looked at it before, you don't have to open up that assignment. If you know how that person did, you can actually put in their grade in the grade book. Again, it's going to save it but not be returned. And if you want to return it, you can do that from here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and return that because I want you to see something about class average, about looking at particular students. So I'm going to go to the People tab, and I see Fake Student has an 83 overall average here with the assignments. And I'm going to go to the People tab, and I want to show you a really cool trick. So if I want to see Fake Student and how they're doing, I can click on their name and I see an overall grade here, and this is sort of a panel of all their assignments. This is a really great thing. We talked about communication in a previous video. If I want to quickly notify that parent or that student how they're doing in this particular class, if you click on the email, you can decide to email the student and include this work summary so that this information is going to go directly into the email so they can see how they're doing right now. This might be a place where I'm like, great job, you're really on track, or schedule a meeting with me. We need to kind of come up with a plan to support you a little better. So that's another way you can put some communication in while you're also talking about grading. All right, let's return to the classroom and let's open one of our graded assignments. So let's go back to this Chapter 1 reflection and view the assignment. Now at the top of this one assignment, there is a different gear. This gear is not the same one that was at the top. This is now a different one. And if I click on it, I want you to notice what it says. I can now copy every grade that's in my gradebook to a Google Sheets file, or I can download all the grades to a CSV file, or download just this one assignment grades to a CSV file. So I want to show you this because a lot of people get confused and think you're supposed to go to grades and use this gear, but this is our classroom settings gear. So if you want all these grades in a Google spreadsheet, you're going to need to open up one assignment and then go to the gear that's not all the way at the top, but it's at this next level, and you're going to copy all the grades to a Google Sheet. So I'll show you what this does. So I'm going to say copy to a Google Sheet. Basically what it does is it takes your table that you had on Google Classroom, it puts your students in with their contact information, and it puts in the assignments and the grades and includes your class average. So it's not going to keep feeding this. This is not a live document, so if I make a new assignment, it's not going to populate into here. It does just give you a temporary look at how your class is doing. This is helpful if you needed to save it and import it somewhere else. But I did want to show you about that. So just a couple things to review. When you're thinking about grades, you're going to want to go to your class settings, decide what kind of grading method you're going to be using, decide what you want the students to see, and decide if you're going to use any categories. After you've done that, when you create an assignment, if you're using categories, you're going to need to set your category, the value of the assignment. When you do start grading your assignments, you'll remember that you can either type into the field or you can open it up to the grade view and enter your grades here along with private comments. So hopefully you've kind of taken a look at grading in Google Classroom, and you've seen how this is a very powerful tool to help you stay on top of student growth, help students know how they're doing, and be able to communicate that with guardians as well.